It is 2014. You are Capcom. You have officially wrapped up Street Fighter 4, the most successful Street Fighter ever. A game that almost single-handedly revived the modern AAA fighting game genre. Against all odds, you made it a success. So, of course, you immediately start your journey on the next one. Why wouldn't you? This should be an easy hit, a slam dunk for Capcom. We are now slowly coming up to what is almost certainly the last update to Street Fighter V, as 6 is already announced and the hype train is slowly leaving the station, going full steam ahead. So let's take a little look back at Street Fighter V's fall and rise through the years. Let's jump back to the beta, July 23rd, 2015. And it takes a solid 30 minutes for people to realize it is a completely unplayable mess. Barred by horrible network issues, making it impossible to even get a match, and if you do, the netcode makes it almost unbearable to play. It gets so bad so quickly that Capcom takes the beta completely down.
The Street Fighter V beta isn't off to the best start, as players seem to spend more time fighting the servers instead of each other. Users also have reported issues with just logging into Street Fighter V as well. Yikes. As such, this has led to Capcom shutting down the Street Fighter V beta for the time being, as the company works to knock out the issues.
But hey, this is why we do betas, so you can work out all those kinks before the actual release. But it doesn't inspire confidence from the fans when you have these kind of issues. But it's better to have them here in the beta than in the actual release of the game. Of course, in hindsight, we can say this was a sign of all the troubles to come. So, 16th of February 2016, the game is officially released. And the reviews are in. And oh boy, well, they mixed. At least the professional reviewers are pretty mixed. It's praised for its roster and core mechanics, the gameplay is solid, but also slammed for the lack of content. IGN, one of the more positive reviews, said, and I quote, "An excellent fighting game that's missing too many features." Not a horrible review, but not exactly a glowing review either. But The Guardian, oh, they held nothing back. And I quote, "Street Fighter V is an unfinished catastrophe, a game delivered half-cooked as if to meet a financial deadline rather than an artistic one. Nobody could offer a definitive judgment on the game today in good conscience. One thing, however, is certain, buying Street Fighter V today is a speculative gamble." Yeah, that's right. Guardian just said the game was so bad they wouldn't even give it a score because it's not done yet. Ouch. But if you think the press was harsh on it, don't worry, the players were much meaner. But hey, was it fair? What was actually missing in the game? Well, in short, most of it was missing. First, remember those online issues from the beta? They are back. Now, not as bad as the beta, but still enough to ruin the online experience for many people. Well, even most people. Oh, and there's for some reason a constant 8 frames of input lag, at least on the PS4 version. Just for some reason. Second, the missing modes. There was no story mode, not even a story snippet. You get a tiny story prologue consisting of a few lines, and that's it. Now, you may think these are small issues. You only care about the good old arcade, you don't need a story mode. Well, there was no arcade mode. There was even no way to play to the CPU. No CPU versus CPU, no gallery mode. Nothing really, the game wasn't done yet. The complete basics of fighting games were not here. Simply, it felt like the game wasn't complete. But Capcom decided that it still wanted to release the game, most likely to hit the yearly quarter and look good for the shareholders. But then you would of course expect them to at least release it at a reduced price, or give a nice path forward with updates and see that, hey, no, don't worry, all the game modes are coming. No, it's a $60 game, and no word about when everything else is coming. Is everything else coming? And to absolutely no one's surprise, the fans, they were pissed. Now, if this video was a review of the launch of Street Fighter V, I would probably give it like a 3.5 out of 10, and that's being pretty generous. And this is even when I skipped a few other minor controversies, like a censorship debacle with some characters, and a pretty serious PC security issue. But hey, if you were worried that Capcom got away with it, releasing a half-baked game, don't worry. It definitely did not go according to plan according to Capcom either. They openly stated that it would need Street Fighter V to sell more than 2 million copies by the end of the fiscal 2016 to be an actual success. By March of 2016, Street Fighter V had officially sold about 1.4 million copies, making it officially a failure, and much more importantly, an embarrassment for Capcom. Kenzo Tsuchimoto, the CEO of Capcom, even admitted they released an incomplete product and it needed more time in the oven, and he even apologized for it. And this is rock bottom. A commercial failure and embarrassment just when Capcom had finally warmed up to releasing fighting games again. Thankfully, this is not where the story ends. No, this is a comeback story. The game wasn't abandoned by Capcom. No, they continued their plan with releasing new characters in Season 1 and Season 2. And they continued updating the backend slowly, mostly fixing the most horrible netcode issues at least. Mind you, they were still not good, not even close to it, not by a long shot. So let's jump to October of 2017. Capcom announced Street Fighter V, the arcade edition. An updated version that included all DLC characters, new interface, new balance patch, and finally, new game modes, like an arcade, an extra battle mode, woo! And if you already own Street Fighter V, you would get the update for free, yay! And if you didn't own it, you could buy it for a reduced price instead of the usual 60. Now, there is definitely still a lot of problems with Street Fighter here, like the overly aggressive monetized systems, but this seems to be the point where the general attitude had started to slowly switch to a more positive one. If this was the version of the game that originally launched in 2016, I don't think anyone would have had much hate at all. It would have probably mostly liked, a solid 6 or a 7. You know, most people would be completely fine with it. It's a good start for a fighting game, but this wasn't the start, was it? Many fans would argue it's too little, too late. The damage had been done, and they're not going to touch Street Fighter anytime soon. Let's take this opportunity to talk about the fight money. Ah yes, fight money. It's the currency Street Fighter uses. Simply, it is horrible. You will earn a decent amount first, maybe enough to unlock one character, but then it slows down to a ridiculous degree, making it basically completely useless. You need to fight about 400 ranked matches at this point to get anything. If you want a costume, stage, a character, let's be honest, you need to pay real money. You can ignore the fight money, it's just a completely useless feature and horribly balanced at that. So, it definitely wasn't smooth sailing forward. Oh no, not at all. For example, in 2018, Capcom decided that it was a good idea to introduce in-game advertisements in loading screens and as logos and sponsors on the characters. Ooh, this did not go down well. Unsurprisingly, this was met with immediate and swift hatred from journalists and players alike. And thankfully it does look like Capcom got the message, as they never really did anything else than promote Capcom Cup with the advertisements. But this was definitely a test to see how far they could push it. Alright, the last big version of Street Fighter V was the Champion Edition, released on February 14, 2020. Once again a big update, many balance changes, a new price for new players, and an upgrade fee for returning players. This will give you all the characters, costumes and stages through Season 4. A nice update, especially if you're a new player. This was a nice price to get basically a shit ton of content. But if you were, didn't like Street Fighter V, at this point they were not doing anything to get you back in there. but that should be expected at this point. I think this is also the time when you could say that Street Fighter V is a worthy entry into the Street Fighter franchise. And it definitely showed in sales too. Capcom had announced that the lifetime sales for Street Fighter V has met all goals, with selling over 6 million copies now, actually making it the second most sold Street Fighter of all time. Maybe even a bigger sign that the Street Fighter V was doing good is of course that they announced now Street Fighter 6. Though it had been leaked and rumored before, now we have the official confirmation that Street Fighter 6 is actually coming. But let's get back to Street Fighter 5. They still had one more season to come, Season 5. Most likely Season 5 only came out because Street Fighter 6 faced some development issues at the back end. But that doesn't take away from the great last season of characters. They kept up with balance updates, they even added new gameplay features at this point in the game. Obviously still passionate to improve the game even near its end. So in the end, how is Street Fighter V? Well, the online is still outdated and frankly pretty bad. The game is simply expensive. You just want every Chun-Li costume? Well, there is like 20 of them by the way. Hopefully your wallet is very heavy. But where it actually counts, the gameplay, the fun factor, it is very high. I always enjoy myself when I boot it up. Yes, I of course wish the online would be a bit smoother, it would have a nice rollback, but it doesn't ruin it for me. But I completely understand if you can't play it after playing good rollback netcode games. Street Fighter V is in the best state it has ever been, and it is worth getting into still, if you haven't bothered getting it at this point. Plus, the last update is coming in a few days here, and there will be a small influx of players to play against, so you don't have to worry about wait times or anything. Oh, can I just mention here quickly, the new filter looks amazing. Now, I do not think Street Fighter V is as good as Street Fighter 4 was, but at this point, who still hates Street Fighter 5? I mean, if you complain about lack of content or whatnot, you haven't played the game in years. Of course, if you don't like the mechanics, you don't like the mechanics, there's nothing you can do about that at this point. But still today, Street Fighter V is a solid fighting game that any fan of the genre should play. But yeah, that is the abridged story of Street Fighter V. Kinda. Ignoring some points. Putting my thoughts in there. Maybe this was a rant? Oh god. What am I gonna call this video? A review? A retrospective? What happened? Oh god. I don't know. Well, hopefully I will come up with something. Like and subscribe. You know, the usual YouTube stuff. You know what to do at this point.
Alright, you ready?